You probably won't believe any of this, so feel free to treat it as fiction. The method I used was channeling. I stumbled across the word online and thought it sounded interesting. I never liked how it was usually described, too suspicious, so I developed my own approach and spent about 7 months quietly trying to reach something. The technique was similar to what people call a rolling exit in out-of-body experience communities. After 7 months, one night on the edge of sleep, I felt a sensation moving from my stomach up through my chest. I thought I'd had an out-of-body experience, but it didn't feel like anything I'd read about. The floating sensation spread through my whole body, but I never felt like I'd left it. The room began to shift, walls flying past like scenery outside a train window. When they disappeared and I found myself in a space that looked like smeared, swirling paint, pure terror hit me. I was crying and screaming, thrashing around trying to wake up. Then I felt something pulling me, but I couldn't tell which direction. Then the swirling color gave way to a space of pure white light. Around me were what looked like enormous bubbles. I reached out to touch one. "Don't touch those." In Japanese, I spun around. A heavy-set white man in a Hawaiian shirt and shorts, think Michael Moore, was descending toward me. The fact that there was someone to talk to overwhelmed me. I collapsed, half laughing, half crying. He sat beside me and asked how I'd gotten there. I explained, and his expression shifted to something close to panic. "Do you think this is a dream? A lucid dream?" "Yeah, I just don't know how to wake up. I'm telling you, this is not a dream." I started pushing back. "If it's not a dream, prove it." He thought for a moment. "That's difficult. Isn't there some way?" "Fine, I'll take you somewhere near Earth." He grabbed my arm and we moved through the swirling space. When he told me to open my eyes, I saw a globe about the size of a volleyball, floating there. "That's a toy," I said. "Picture your room in your head." The globe began to grow, rushing toward us. I tried to back away but he held me in place, and suddenly we were inside it, my room. But when I looked out the window, the paint space was still there outside. "Lost anything recently?" he asked. I mentioned some headphones I'd misplaced. He told me to picture them. I did, and felt a pull. I was in a friend's room, under the TV stand. Something was glowing. "I'm sending you back. Your headphones are under that glowing spot. And don't do the channeling anymore. Try to forget all of this." Before he sent me back, I asked who he was. He let out a small breath. "I live in a different dimension, but I'm an alien. Same as you, in that sense." I woke up. The next day, I checked under my friend's TV stand. The headphones were there. That convinced me. I spent the next week trying to go back every night. About a week in, I found myself drifting through the paint-colored space again, this time without terror, and without being pulled. I floated around on my own. Earth was visible behind me, volleyball-sized. Mars was nearby. Other bodies floated all around. I was wandering and enjoying myself when I spotted 3 heavy-set men, gathered around one of them, talking and laughing. All 3 looked like Michael Moore. I said hello. All 3 looked startled, muttering something about a red one being here. How strange it was. I asked if I wasn't supposed to be here. One shrugged. "Let's just say it's not beneficial for either of us." "Who are you?" I asked. "Who are you?" One shot back. "A human from Earth." I pointed at the globe when they looked blank. One said something like Akaho and pointed at Mars. "That's where the living things were." "What are you, then?" They answered, "You and us operate under different rules, distance, scale, time, but we are both beings of the same universe." Then one pointed at a nearby body. "Earth hasn't found that one yet." "Shame." I asked why we could understand each other. They explained the space has a mechanism where communication appears in whatever form feels most natural to each person. As for why they looked like Michael Moore, apparently that's just who I associate with familiarity. I asked what the paint-colored space was. They described it as the same universe, but under different rules. Something like an astral plane. Could they be found from Earth using telescopes? As long as you expand light to see things, you won't find each other that way. Ancient humans used a completely different method to observe the sky. Why did you stop? I had no idea. Then I asked about Mars. One answered reluctantly. Mars absolutely had life, our kind, operating under the same rules. Many species, including intelligent ones. The only other places in the solar system with that kind of life were the Sun and Earth. They took me to the Sun, a volleyball-sized green sphere near Earth. "It's not burning?" I asked. "Only the surface, in the sense you'd understand," one said. "The Sun is a special star, where multiple dimensional rules converge." As I looked at it, a figure emerged from inside and floated toward me. He looked like a well-known Japanese actor, relaxed, immediately said hi. He looked at me and said, "Earth, right? Unusual place." I asked about the word they kept using, Akaho. He said it meant the most advanced beings that had ever lived. At the time of Mars peak civilization, Earth was developmentally very young, covered in ocean. The Martians explored Earth regularly but found only microorganisms and proto-insect life. When I mentioned the theory of evolution, he burst out laughing, then told me to stop using such a limited, Earth-only framework. The Akaho were, in Earth terms, the origin of what would later become both mammals and reptiles. They intentionally seeded Earth with life forms carrying Akaho DNA, planning to develop them along a similar path as Mars, then used them as labor to terraform Mars. I asked how Martian life had originated. He smiled. We split off and settled there. The moon was nowhere in the space. One of the group explained. The moon is, in Earth terms, an artificial object. The Akaho built it when developing Earth. Eventually a war broke out among Akaho factions on Mars. Many fled to Earth. They used solar-powered weapons far beyond anything Earth has, scorching the surface. A ceasefire was called. The Akaho on Earth noticed that some creatures, proto-rodents, dinosaurs, aquatic life, had evolved in ways resembling themselves. They analyzed the DNA, cross-referenced with their own, and engineered hybrid species. The plan, seed Earth with these beings, then use them as labor to terraform Mars. About 4 types of humans appeared, giants over 2.5 meters tall, a type most genetically close to the Akaho, 2 types with stronger animal features, and a fully bipedal ape-like type. Each was created by a different faction. The giants were taken off-world and ended up on a completely different planet. The ape-like type went extinct. When I suggested they might be our ancestors, he laughed from where I'm standing. Apes and humans both just look like Akaho variants. 2 types remained and developed rudimentary civilizations. The Akaho, living in the sky, began coming to the surface more often. Around 8000 BCE, they settled in what is now the Middle East. The 2 human groups weren't friendly, and eventually went to war. The Akaho split into factions, each backing a different side. By around 6000 BCE, a 3-way war was underway. The 2 human types could draw world maps and understand chemical reactions by this point. The Michael Moore figure said I should go back and rest, the sun being added. You probably shouldn't keep coming here. I asked if I was the first Earth human to visit. No, Earth has sent people here before, on and off. They brought me back. I woke up and immediately started researching. Things matched, though everything online felt sensationalized. About 6 months later, I found myself back in the paint-colored space. The 3 Michael Moore figures filled in what happened next. The full-scale war used weapons that made current human technology look primitive. A truly global conflict. The Middle East Akaho faction had an advantage because their mothership was there. They gave humans nuclear weapons, solar technology, and used them freely. The Africa faction responded with disaster weapons, but these got out of control. Eventually both sides started fighting directly. There are records of this in certain ancient Indian texts. The Africa faction was nearly destroyed. Their last act was deploying a flood weapon, something that could exponentially multiply water. By around 5000 BCE, the Middle East faction realized this weapon had been activated. The surface flooded catastrophically. The Akaho retreated to their ships, and left the humans behind. I asked about Noah's Ark. He smiled. There were some animals on board, but Earth has flooded many times. It's not that unusual. Eventually the Giants group returned with more advanced technology, and neutralized the flood weapon. The faction that caused the destruction was ordered to take responsibility and left. Around 4000 BCE, the remaining Akaho began educating the ship-bound humans. Human lifespans were frustratingly short, but watching humans preserve knowledge across generations led the Akaho to a conclusion. Put them back on the surface, and Mars restoration can move faster. The ship humans returned to the surface. The Akaho gave them knowledge but almost no tools. Last time they'd armed humans, things went badly. These returning humans spread their knowledge among the surface population. I suspect these were the Sumerians, and this is where Mesopotamian civilization begins. But among the surface humans, those who remembered the Akaho abandoning them during the floods eventually conquered the Sumerians. That's probably the Akkadians. He said that was the end of the main story. I asked about Neanderthals. His answer, same species as you. The same way you'd consider someone with Down syndrome part of your species. In other words, not a separate species, just humans with different DNA expression. After that, the Akaho kept interfering on the surface, got close to the Maya, took many of them into space. But as humanity began developing interest in space, the Akaho stopped making contact. Now they've left Earth temporarily and are preparing for something with the Giants group. Then I asked the questions I'd prepared. Nazca lines, created to teach Sumerian descendants the concepts of drafting and geometry. Tracing the lines while learning mathematics was eventually preserved as ritual. To check the designs, They built handmade hot air balloons, and observed from above, a nearly lost technology now. The Akaho were barely involved. The Maya, a proud people who, even when given metallurgy and the wheel, refused to use them. They preferred human effort. The Akaho thought their Akaho DNA was showing strongly. They taught the Maya mathematics, and the Maya invented zero and calculated celestial cycles with complete accuracy. The Akaho grew fond of them and shared astronomical methods no longer known to humanity. Eventually the Akaho took many of the brightest Maya minds into space. After that, the remaining civilization collapsed. Climate failure, economic breakdown, invasion. The Egyptian pyramids, he seemed slightly wary. Built around 2500 BCE, they appear to be the work of a different alien group, not the Akaho. The pyramid isn't meaningful in its completed form. The value is in the process of building it. Same with the Maya pyramids. That was all for that session. The next day I went back, and found my high school math teacher floating in the space. She was from somewhere outside our solar system entirely, different dimension, different rules. Her kind drifts through space rather than living on planets. They have no concept of answers. Talking to Earth beings creates cognitive dissonance for them. The Hawaiian shirt Michael Moore appeared. I asked if they can always tell when an Earth human arrives. If we're paying attention, maybe. This was coincidence. She and he talked briefly, then she disappeared. A few more questions. What is the paint-colored space? The same universe as mine, under different rules. Many variants exist, a 1, a 2, a 3, but they're all still. I perceive it as swirling color because I'm forcing a three-dimensional view onto something that doesn't work that way. UFO sightings during disasters. The Akaho. Roughly 3 categories. Visitors from another dimension, beings from a parallel planet traveling artificially, or accidental reflections of other dimensional images. For Earth, the most likely explanation is reconstructed Sumerian knowledge. He suggested checking whether UFOs appear before disasters, not during. I never got around to it. After that I went back one more time. A different alien appeared in a form I found very distracting, and I spent the whole visit too flustered to listen. That was probably the last real visit. I haven't been back since. Is any of this real? If I made it all up, I deserve to bury my face in a pillow in embarrassment. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.